In today's video, I'm going to show you the 5 best TikTok recipes I've come across. Most of the recipes on TikTok aren't what they say they are, but these ones are going to blow you away. And make sure you stick around for the last one, it's my favorite and the easiest one to make. Let's get started. We're starting with the cottage cheese flatbread, a recipe I've been seeing everywhere on social media recently, which to me looked too good to be true. So let's see how it turns out. To make the flatbread, I added some cottage cheese to my blender. I then cracked 2 eggs, and then for spices I'm using garlic and herbes de Provence. I added about a teaspoon each, seasoned with pepper, and blended it up. I then emptied the mixture in a baking dish lined with baking paper and used my spoon to make it into a little flatbread shape. I then baked it in the oven until it was nice and golden, and our flatbread is ready. For my wrap, I'm doing a thick layer of mayonnaise first, so I spread that evenly, and then I added some rocket. I then added some cheese, my favorite these days is Edam, and some baby tomatoes that I cut in half. I also added half an avocado for some extra creaminess. I seasoned with black pepper and then did my best to fold it using some baking paper and some foil to keep it together. And our cottage cheese flatbread is ready. My cottage cheese flatbread is ready. I saved some to try on its own. It's so good. I'm so surprised because I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't look 100% like a flatbread because it's so shiny, I think because of the egg, but I think because of the herbs it has such a nice flavor and I think it would work great as a pizza base. So I just put the usual things that I've put in a wrap. If I wasn't pregnant I would put some ham, but can't have any deli meat, so just cheese it is. A bit confusing at first because the texture is not 100%, I mean it's nothing like a flatbread, the texture, it's tasty, but I would describe it as a kind of like an omelette but with cheese. I like it, I just wouldn't call it a flatbread. The herbs definitely make it very yummy. I think another good combo would be tomato, rocket, feta, pepper, so like a Greek style, because those herbs with the tomato and feta would be amazing, but for now I'm happy. Next up, we're making a healthy potato salad from my favorite online nutritionist, Emily English. Her recipes look so delicious and I love that they're all balanced and nutritious. To begin, I started by chopping some baby potatoes in quarters. If you're enjoying this video so far, by the way, and would like to see more food videos, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future yummy recipes. Okay, back to the potato salad. I added my potatoes in a pan with boiling water and I also peeled a few garlic cloves and added them in the boiling water too. I season with lots of salt and let them boil until they're fork tender. And while they're boiling, I'm prepping the rest of the ingredients, so I chopped a bunch of spring onions in small pieces. For herbs, I'm doing a bunch of basil and parsley, so I wash them well and then I'm chopping them up in small pieces. For the dressing, I'm doing it straight into the bowl, so I added some Greek yogurt to my bowl and then some olive oil. I also added some vinegar and some salt. I added the spring onions and herbs and gave them a mix, and then my potatoes were cooked, so I added them to the same bowl as well. I seasoned with a bit of salt and pepper and then mixing it well. And the recipe recommends you add the potatoes while they're still warm so they can wilt the herbs a bit, so that's what I did here. I continued mixing until everything was covered with the dressing and herbs and let it on the side to cool for a bit. And to serve, I added a bit of rocket on my plate and topped with the potato salad. And this smells so good because of the warm herbs, it smells so delicious and summery. So of course I had to choose a potato recipe because I just love potatoes. If you didn't know, they're my favorite vegetable and they're just so good. When I added the potatoes and mixed it around, the herbs smelled divine. It smells so good, so I'm so excited. I was very close to putting mayonnaise as well as Greek yogurt because I like having a bit of both. I like the taste of mayonnaise, but sometimes you don't want the thickness and like the fattiness of mayonnaise, so I do like mix them together, but I didn't, just so I can taste the recipe as it was intended. So let's try. I don't know if it's because I'm biased and it's potatoes, but might be my favorite so far. It's so fresh, so flavorful, and as a side for your barbecue, so good. I'm glad I didn't put the mayonnaise because the Greek yogurt adds such a nice freshness. It's so good, it's the perfect summer salad. So good. And I couldn't resist including a lemon recipe in this video, as you know I'm obsessed with lemons, especially when it comes to sweet treats. So this recipe is by the Fit Londoner, who shares delicious and healthy recipes on her social media. To make the pancakes, I started by adding some Greek yogurt to my bowl. I cracked an egg and added some vanilla extract too. I then did a couple tablespoons of milk, and then to make them lemony, I'm doing the zest of a lemon. And to make them even more lemony, we're also doing the juice of half the lemon. So I squeezed the lemon in my little lemon squeezer and added that in the same bowl. Lastly, for my wet ingredients, I added some honey and gave it a good whisk to make sure all the ingredients are incorporated. And now onto adding the rest of the ingredients. I added the flour, baking powder and baking soda through a sieve, and then whisked everything together until it's a nice butter-like consistency. And now onto making them, I added some butter to my non-stick pan and added little spoonfuls of the mixture. I let them cook for a few minutes, and then when bubbles appear, it's time to flip. And these were very fluffy, so I probably should have cooked them one at a time or used a bigger pan, but I was too impatient and just had to settle for not perfectly round pancakes. Once they were all cooked, I served them on my plate and I topped with some Greek yogurt mixed with maple syrup, but you can top them with whatever you like. Honey and nuts would also work great, or maple syrup, or even just plain. I also added some raspberries, as I love the combination of lemon and raspberry. And lastly, a lemon slice for the top, and my lemon pancakes are ready. Another super fragrant and lemony recipe, ready to be enjoyed. This looks so amazing and it smelled so lemony when I made it. I'm so excited. I haven't put any honey on top. I might need to add some, but I added some Greek yogurt that's mixed in with maple syrup, a bit of vanilla. So try it with that and see if it needs some extra maple syrup or honey. They are so lemony, and with that Greek yogurt with maple syrup, it's just perfect. It's so good. I'll try some plain. They are so fluffy. They were super fluffy when I made them. I think I hadn't made proper pancakes in so long. I always make them with oats, so I didn't expect that rice. It's so good. Such a good recipe. So good. Perfect. Our next recipe is by a Greek nutritionist who shares healthy and delicious recipes that are also simple to make. And her recipe for 100% whole wheat bread definitely got my attention, especially since I've been looking for a homemade alternative to the classic sliced bread. To make it, I started by melting a bit of butter in a little saucepan. And for my flour, I'll be using whole wheat spelt flour, as I just love the taste and I think it's healthier than plain flour. So there's a bunch of fiber left here that won't come through the sieve. And I'm assuming I need to get rid of that, but it feels like a waste because that's all the fiber. Don't know what to do. Trying to like squeeze it through with my hands, but there's still quite a lot of thing left. It doesn't say in the recipe. About this much left of the fiber. I think I'll add it in because it feels wasteful, and it's all the fiber. Once I added my flour, I added the melted butter and gave the mixture a stir with a spoon. I also mixed my yeast with some lukewarm water and let it on the side to activate before adding it in. I then added the salt and the yeast and water and gave it a stir with a spoon to start combining. I then switched to my hands and started bringing the mixture together with my hands. I kneaded it in the bowl for a few minutes and then let it rest for about an hour. After an hour, it was ready for the second proof, so I added some flour to my working space, and because it looked like it would make 2 loaves, I divided the mixture into 4 pieces. I then took one little bowl and opening it up with my rolling pin. Once it was open into a little rectangular shape, I rolled it and added it to my loaf pan that I lined with baking paper. I then did the exact thing for the other dough piece, opening it up with my rolling pin and then rolling it and adding it next to the other dough piece. I covered it with a kitchen towel and let it rise for another hour. And when it was time to bake, I prepared the egg wash, so I simply cracked an egg in a bowl, whisked it, and then used a little brush to cover the loaf all around. I baked my bread in a preheated oven until nice and golden and let it cool before I cut it. And the recipe said it's best if you leave it overnight before you cut it, so I let it overnight and then the next day I cut some to try. And this is how it looked inside. It looked a bit different to the one on the TikTok recipe, but I added some butter on it to taste test. Time to try the bread. I did a simple batter because I think I just want to taste the bread and just see how it is. It doesn't look as big and fluffy. Maybe I shouldn't have split it into two, but her form looked so big, so I thought it's safer if I divide it into two. So it is a bit short and not as high as on the TikTok, but let's try. I really like it. Very homely. It's quite dense, but it is the next day, and I think it would actually be so good toasted. So for your breakfast, just have this like with a bit of butter and honey, or butter and cheese, or cheese and ham and all this nice stuff, or a bit of avocado. That would be great. But even with just plain with butter, it's so good. It's so tasty. I love homemade bread because I used 100% whole wheat flour. It just feels so good for you. So I'm happy. Another good one. Crust is so good. And I saved one of my favorites for last. Listen to this: tiramisu flavored baked oats. Tiramisu is one of my favorite desserts, and this baked oat version definitely doesn't disappoint. To start, I'm making some coffee so it has some time to cool before I add it to the mixture. And because I can't handle the caffeine, I'm doing decaf, but the original recipe called for instant coffee, which I didn't have in the house, so I'm going for espresso. And now onto making the baked oats. I added a couple bananas in my baking dish and mashing them well with my fork. And you can tell these weren't as ripe, so they needed a bit of work to mash, but once I did that, I added my oats, and instead of the protein powdered, I used some flour. I then added some baking powder, and then since I didn't have any chocolate chips in the house, I'm adding some dark baking chocolate that I chopped up in pieces. I added the chocolate chunks, and since I didn't use the flavored protein powder, I decided to add a couple tablespoons of brown sugar. I gave this a mix and then added the milk and the coffee. I then gave it a good mix to make sure everything is incorporated well, and put it in a preheated oven to bake. And while it's baking, I'm preparing my creamy topping. So to a little bowl, I added some Greek yogurt, maple syrup. You can add as much as you like depending on how sweet you want it, and some vanilla extract. I gave it a good stir so everything is incorporated well, and my frosting is ready. And now my baked oats are ready, so I cut it in 8 pieces and serve myself one to try. And if you're meal prepping this, I would recommend keeping the oat separate to the topping and just add the topping when you're ready to eat. That's what I did, and it was fresh and delicious even after the first day. So when I was ready to eat, I added a big spoonful of the yogurt frosting and then topped with some cacao powder. And my tiramisu flavored baked oats are ready. I am so excited for this. It smells amazing. It smells like tiramisu, so I can't wait. Maybe I shouldn't have high expectations because I know it's not a tiramisu, but it has all the flavors, so I can't help it. I'm excited. It's still super hot. It's probably gonna be better if it's like a bit cooler, just like tiramisu, but I wanna try now. It's exactly like what you would expect. It is like a tiramisu flavored baked oats. I love it. It's so good. A slightly tangy yogurt. I love it because, I don't know, it just gives it a nice flavor, and usually you'd have mascarpone, the tiramisu, so yeah, I just love it. It's so good. I did change the recipe a bit because I didn't have like things like soy protein and things like that, but it still tastes amazing. Not too sweet. I think as a pre-workout it would be amazing, like as an afternoon snack. I'm not very big on sweet breakfast, so I wouldn't have it as a breakfast, but I would have it as my afternoon snack before the gym or like before a workout or something. It's so good. I can't stop eating. It's so good. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up, and if you'd like to see a full day of eating, you can check out this video, and I'll see you in the next one.